Hello. Thank you for joining us today for the Tech Role Models interview with Linda Davidson, who is the Global Technology Program Director for a Group M company under the name of Choreograph. Pleasure to be joined to you by Linda, sorry.
That's a
Well,
great
great
start.
start.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
It's a pleasure. I think when we started doing these videos, and I genuinely mean this, you were probably one of the motivations and inspirations for me for setting this kind of thing up. I think we first met about 3 or 4 years ago when you were working for Jamie Oliver, and your story has stuck with me ever since then. And I'm sure at the end of today's session, the rest of the people present or watching the video will understand why that is. But before we get into that, it'd be really useful for the members of the program just to understand a little bit more about your role, what that means on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. Well, I'm a project manager really, and I make things that the strategy is delivered, and me and my team implement it. And Choreograph is, as a Group M company, is all about data and technology and enabling audiences to see advertising that works for them. So that's the soundbite. I got that one in. But really, what that means is we collect first-party data from our audiences for our clients from various different places, and we augment that data in a single place in data lakes, etc. And then we build audience profiles and segments, and using that first party data in an ethical way. And then we activate that data to build audiences and create advertising for our clients across a range of platforms. So that's what we do in essence. And my role really is it's two parts. Firstly, we are a very new company. We're only a month or two old, and we were a set of companies that were brought together. So we all had different email addresses. We all had different HR systems, different payroll systems, different ways to book meetings and collaborate, Slack, Teams, Google. So my role is to amalgamate all of those and integrate all of those systems into a single domain. And then the other part of my role is to run business as usual and get our products out to market faster and more efficiently. So there's two aspects to it. It's a really exciting place to work. Of course, you've got the whole Group MWPP backbone to support you, but we're running as a startup within that huge organisation in this very new world of data and machine learning and artificial intelligence. So it's it's really exciting. And as I said, my role is a project manager. I'm not technical. However, I can speak with technical people, and I can speak with the creative side as well. So I'm bilingual, as it were. So I'm not actually technical, as I said, but can do technical speak, but can do creative speak as well. And so that's always been my role in technology, actually. It's been to be the translator between the two parties. And that started really when I was at Discovery, and I was elevated into this IT director role. I'd never been never worked in IT before. And it was one of those moments where you look around and you go, what, who, me? And they go, yeah, you. And that was because I grew up in telly and you understood every single department of telly. I'd moved more and more into an operational role at Discovery, and as I said, I could translate back to the technical teams. And it was just at that time, it's about 10 years ago, where technology IT departments were transitioning out of being, you can take the back of a computer and rebuild it. They were becoming front and center of businesses. And so they needed somebody that was able to get those traditional IT folks a seat at the table and make them heard and let them be heard. And similarly, so I would literally sit at a table in a meeting room sitting between technologists and creative people and translate, and so everybody knew what they were doing. So yes, that's my role. And
Yeah. So you very, and I'm sure this is very modestly, describe yourself as a project manager, despite the global program director job title. Now, is that because it's a startup and everyone has to muck in, or is that typically, you know, your approach is you like to be part of that delivery team as opposed to sitting at a leadership level?
I think you need to do both, whatever level you're at. I think you're part of the team. Well, that's my approach anyway. I like to be part of the team, and I like to. Well, I suppose my role is in service of the technologists. It's enabling them, and I guess that's what a true project manager is in service of strategy. It's in service of enabling people to do what they need to do and to get things moving. And I quite like that, actually, in service. I might keep that.
Kind of phrase.
Mm.
So yeah, one of the reasons that I was very keen to get you on this recording, and like I said, the reasons that you're the inspiration for doing this is because, you know, you've probably got one of the most unorthodox backgrounds that of somebody working in a tech leadership role that I've ever met. So yeah, it'd be great if you could share with us some understanding of, you know, where you've come from.
Okay. I'll go back to the beginning, shall I?
Please do.
Okay. So I was a young woman, and I grew up as I was in foster care as a child, and I left care at age 13 and went to live with my mum. But I was a ward of court, and so all of the decisions that get made about you, which school you go to, when you can leave school, they weren't made by my parents, they were made by the courts. And so the courts decided that I'd stop being a ward of court. And so that's when I had to leave home. So I went to live in a bedsit in Liverpool and got a job as a dancer in a working men's club.
How old are you at this point?
16.
Wow.
I left home the day before my 16th birthday. And my friend Helen had this bedsit in Liverpool 8, and she put orange handprints and footprints. And God knows how she got it. She was quite flexible, actually, dancer, footprints on the wall. And so I moved into this bedsit with this baby belling, and I had my own bed, and I had my record player, which I loved. And I would put Michael Jackson Off the Wall album on all the time. And my ambition at that point was to go and be a dancer on Blackpool Pier with Loretta Legg's company. And because the jewels and the feathers that they wore, they were just fabulous. And so that's all I wanted to do. But then I was watching a program on the telly, and it was called A Kind of Loving. And it was the first time, apart from Coronation Street, that I'd heard a Northern accent on the telly. And it blew my mind. And I just thought, oh, well, of course, I'm just going to go and get the train down to London. I'm going to be an actor. So me and my friend Julie, we were drinking red Lambrusco on my bed while we were watching this telly programme. We plotted to come down to London, and we found a bedsit in Balham in the Lady magazine, terribly respectful. And we got the date, we booked our tickets to come from Lime Street Station in Liverpool down to London. We got there, we pitched up with our suitcases, and we'd been to Woolworths, which probably most of the people on this call won't know or remember, but it was an iconic shop that disappeared about 20 years ago. And we got to Lime Street Station. We went and got our pictures taken in the photo booth, which was the selfie of the day. And then we went to get on the train, and I got on the train, and I turned round, and Julie was walking away with her case. And so I got on the train and she didn't. So I
Wow.
ended up moving down to London by myself, moving into that bedsit, and auditioned for drama school. I got a job first, though, in a pub on Clapham Common called the Windmill. Got fired from there because I poured a pint of lager top over someone's head because he kept pinching my bottom. I was not having that. Anyway, went to drama school and then left drama school, and there's a trade magazine called The Stage for actors and dancers, and usually it's Cruise needs dancers to go to Abu Dhabi or whatever, but it was a box number. If you are an actress living in London who does not have a London accent, write to this box number. Well, I thought that was me,
Yeah,
so I did.
perfect.
So I did. I've got my posh accent on at the moment though, and so I wrote to this box number, and it turned out to be the BBC, and it turned out to be EastEnders, and so I got this iconic role in and what became an iconic series. That first started out on a 6-month contract. Anyway, went and did loads of West End after that, and load of theatre, film, what have you, usual stuff for an actor. But then, and this is remarkable to me even now, is because I'm a girl who has no maths or English. Got a job writing on a science strand for the BBC. And so I was writing this, and they were launching something called a website. And it was 1996, I think. Anyway, again, mind blown. How can you possibly make ones and zeros communicate across the world and show pictures and scrappy bits of video and text? How could they do that? But they were. And I just had this, oh my God, the potential for communication, for telling stories in different ways. I have to go with this. So I did. And all my mates were like, what? What is that? What is the internet? And I was like trying to explain it, couldn't explain it. Anyway, that's how it started. I then went off and finished an acting job. I was meant to go on a tour for an Alan Ayckbourn play he'd written a part for me. And so I then went back as part of the BBC Online launch team.
Yeah.
And
And
that, sorry, am I waffling?
just to interject there, sorry. So, you say you had, we normally on these conversations talk about, do people need a degree? Now you're saying you didn't even have like O-level maths or English to be able to pre-qualify you for this role. So what do you think were the prerequisite skills that you inherently had that allowed you to go and be a writer on a science program?
That's a really good question. It's all about communication. So essentially what they were asking me to do is exactly what I've been doing later on in my career, is translating what the engineers were trying to talk about and make it relevant for an audience that would sit at home, and for them to be able to understand it without being patronizing in any sense. It's making it palatable and understandable for an audience that's at home. And and also I think so it's being able to it's being articulate and be able to communicate, but I think underpinning all of that is adaptability. And I think if you're adapting something for something else, then you can adapt yourself to something else. And I guess that's what acting is bringing yourself to a part and adapting yourself to make that part believable. And so I think adaptability for anybody is a really key skill. If you're adaptable, you'll be employable forever. If you just go with the flow and don't dig your heels in and say, well, that's not my job or that's not my role. I mean, obviously you have to assert yourself in some situations, but adaptability is probably a skill that I look, I know that I have from that, but it's what I also look for in people.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a skill that people and businesses need in this day and age. You need to
Yeah.
be able to disrupt your job, your market in some kind of way to create that advantage and to change with the times. You can't work in tech and do the thing that you do on day one 30 years later, because that job won't exist anymore. So I think adaptability is absolutely key. So that's you getting into a role that had some involvement with the website. How did you then progress that career to be into the leadership space where you are now?
Well, you go from job to job, but I've also had some pretty amazing mentors. And so you learn so much when you have a mentor. And also when you're watching leaders that you admire and watching them operate and watching them, how they navigate difficult circumstances. I was in a meeting recently with our chief people person, and she utterly elegantly navigated a very difficult situation. And I watched her do it. And then I reflected on it afterwards, for quite some time about how she did it. And so dissected it. And I really learned from that. And I'm trying to practice that skill in my day-to-day. So mentoring has been really key to me in my journey, but also watching brilliant leaders. And yeah, you get leaders that you don't really respect fully, but you can learn from them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So an interesting point you did mention there about the mentor that you speak of wasn't in the line of work that you were in. So she was the people person, so in HR organization. So how have you, or what advice do you give to people looking to identify the right type of mentor, and the kind of skills that a mentor can support with?
Oh, that's a good question. I think possibly don't always go for your comfort zone or people that you like. So perhaps go against the grain a little bit for you so that you can learn. I remember like this is a million years ago, but there was an actor in EastEnders called Tom Watt, and he played Lofty, and he was like a real proper lofty, and but he'd read the Telegraph, and I'd say, Tom, why do you read the Telegraph? And he says, well, I know what they think. I want to know what they think. And that always stuck with me. I mean, that's 35 years ago he told me that. And that's always stuck with me. It's like, well, I know what they think because we're simpatico, but I don't know what you think. And I want to know, because if you're there and you're doing that, how, why? Because I'm not sympathetic or empathetic to your values or the way that you operate in business. So it's not always about going with type. It can be going against type, because I'm mentoring a young woman at the moment, actually, and I wonder why she's chosen me quite often, because I am completely against her type, and I wonder if it's just that. So I would that's one piece of advice. And secondly, the other piece of advice I would say is, when you're trying to find a mentor, is don't make it just about business. Decide what it is that you want out of life in the next wee while, and then how you're going to achieve that with your job. So let's say you want to get a dog and a flat. How is your job going to facilitate that? And then how's your mentor going to facilitate that in your job, so you can facilitate that in your personal life? So don't see yourself holistically, not just in the job that you do.
Yeah, no, great advice. I always get this sense from talking to you, because you're extremely confident, and you're very outgoing, that
If only you knew.
things would just naturally happen fantastically for you. But I suspect, that you faced, some challenges along the way, and some things that members of our program might also be facing, related to, being a woman in tech, or otherwise. What would you say is, the most difficult or biggest challenge that you faced in that career, and how did you overcome that?
think often being a woman is just the major challenge, and I know that that's quite incendiary and divisive and polarizing. Actually, the organization that I work in now, I've not had a single ist comment at all. And I have reflected on that a few times. And I wonder if it's because I work with quite a lot of younger people and that's just not on their agenda. But prior to that, oh God, Discovery was amazing in lots of incredible ways. But there was a core set of, traditional IT guys that just could not wrap their head around the fact that I was this actress that was now in a leadership role in their organization. They just couldn't. And they kept talking to me and kept calling me the actress. So how did I overcome it? I mean, you just have to, you either call them on it, and there are occasions when I have called them people on it, and there are occasions when I've just gone, do you know what? That says more about you than it does me. So you let it go. And then, there is recourse through the channels, the appropriate channels within your organization if it gets bad. But I don't think, actually, I probably should say not having any maths or English, but it hasn't hindered me. Oh, it has actually. I wanted to do introduced apprenticeships into Group N, and I wanted to do one as well, just so I knew how, what it was, what the experience was. And I can't do it because I've got no maths or English.
So, yeah, that's amazing. So you were barred from
Yes.
filing the process.
Yeah.
So now you're obviously having transitioned from a non-tech career into a tech career and realizing not everyone has that technical grounding from an educational perspective. You're very passionate about helping people get into tech in the first place, and apprenticeships is one of the ways you're driving that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think we lose, I can't remember what the percentage is now, and I should have this at the end of my fingertips. Maybe somebody on the call will know this, but we lose so many young women in the STEM subjects once they go to choose their GCSEs because the image is geeky, not relevant, somebody that's in their back bedroom opening the back of a computer, and don't actually know the kind of roles that are available. There are loads of roles in my organisation that aren't technical, but myself, I'm not technical. I have a massive understanding and massive respect, because I tell you what, those guys that are making ones and zeros communicate across the heavens and doing all of their stuff, they are the most creative people I have ever worked with, hands down flat. They really are. And when I say that, they say we're not creative. I'm like, no, you really are. I've lost the thread of what I was saying, Kevin. Go on.
No, it's okay. We're just talking about the apprenticeships.
Oh yeah,
One of
the
the things that
apprenticeship.
I
I am
think,
really passionate about it.
yeah, that I don't want to overlook, because not all of our members are at the start of their career. We've got quite a lot of people who have access to the content, who are equally interested in improving the diversity in their businesses, and we get lots of questions about how can we do that. And as a recruiter, I probably shouldn't say this. I always talk about, don't try and hire the finished product. Think about ways that you can bring people in from other parts of the business or externally, and develop that talent, and focus on the core attributes you spoke about at the start of the conversation around adaptability and communication skills and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Because if people have those inherent traits, they can learn enough technical stuff to get by. But I think one of the challenges that companies face is the pressure of, there's always loads of work to do. So I know personally you're bringing 5 apprentices into your team at the moment. How, physically, how do you do that in terms of, transitioning them into the business and making sure that you're still able to focus on the deliverables that you've got whilst training these people that aren't up to speed just yet?
So it's not my job to train them, that we have a training provider. It's my job really to mentor them and give them the right kinds of projects at the right kind of time. So, start with stuff that's massively in their comfort zone and then start moving out. I think that I think you must always have time to invest in your people, whether they're apprentices or whether they're leadership. That you must always be a good role model to them and take performance management seriously, goal setting seriously. And because, some people don't, do they?
No.
I think it's really important that because if you're not doing proper performance management, how does somebody get a pay rise, for example? How do they get promoted?
Yeah. And it shouldn't be a question we have to ask, but we do have a session this Friday coming up about pay and promotion, because not all companies have that predefined process and structure in place to facilitate it. It's frustrating.
No, and when you come back to apprenticeships and you come back to getting a diverse workforce in working with you, those kind of things need to be set. Otherwise, you can, I'm not saying people do, but you can fall into the trap of, oh, well, I like them, they're one of us, blah, blah, blah. And suddenly you've got a leadership team full of the same kinds of people. So it's really important. Those for all kinds of reasons. Those mechanisms are really important.
Yeah, that's good. So obviously you're very focused on bringing new people into business at a base level and then empowering them to develop. What kind of mechanisms do you have in place to continue that progression and development and help them get to the level that you're at?
God, I don't have any at the moment. I think I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
So that would be a career pathing for 20 years. There is a career pathing process that we're working on. It's not in place.
No. And what do you think? Because again, interesting to some of the members who want to follow in your footsteps. What do you think are the core skills that you had to develop to be able to take on the responsibility of the leadership role you've got now?
I think it's adaptability and resilience. Adaptability, resilience, and being a straight shooter. Don't play the politics. And never blind copy anybody into an email. Unless you're saying, I'm going to blind copy you in. It will always bite you on the arse. So never do that. So those three things. And yeah, no, I think that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. No, thank you. So I'm going to invite the audience to ask any questions. See if we've got anyone that's brave enough to put their hand up. But while I give them a chance to do that, either in the chat or prepare themselves, take themselves off mute, is there any final piece of advice that you would give to somebody that you wish you'd been given at an earlier point in your career?
Well, we were talking about imposter syndrome, weren't we?
Mm.
And I sent the link that you sent me to some women that I'm working with now, younger women. And they immediately responded saying, oh, yeah, I'll read that, which made my heart sink a little bit because I just thought, oh, God, all of us just, we all have this. And you said I was confident and outgoing. Thank you. I don't always feel it, and I'm not always. And, we went out for lunch at the weekend with some people that we've not seen for 18 months because of the pandemic. And I was really, really nervous that I wouldn't have anything to say to them because I haven't done anything. And, you would never know it, but I was. And, yeah, it's just keep going and just keep communicating clearly and eloquently, and make sure you know what you need to get out of the meeting when you're there, and that'll carry you through. And the thing that I always say, but I don't actually believe it myself, is that the imposter in your brain telling you can't do it is the imposter. That's the imposter that you can do it. And it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah,
I
I
can
couldn't agree more.
understand completely why that session that you did on imposter syndrome was so well attended and so well watched.
Yeah, and interesting, it wasn't only females that attended that session. So
Yeah, no, I know, I know.
I think
I still,
it's a human condition. I think
it
every single
is.
person has moments of self-doubt and you know what we want to call it imposter syndrome. Um, Men just seem to be slightly better at pushing it away and blagging it and getting on with things. And I think, you know, we all need to accept that that no one is 100% confident all the time,
No,
and
do you
we'll
know
all
what,
have a
Kevin? We should call it a different thing. We should start a movement to call it something positive.
yeah, because syndrome sounds bad, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah, and imposters also
I
really
heard
awful.
somebody call it imposter phenomenon the other day, which I thought was a lot nicer.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a topic that rears its head again and again and again and again. And I think anyone watching this can, you know, see the way that you are, the way you come across, and see that you equally feel that sometimes, even in, you know, social circumstances, meeting a friend. I think that should help them understand that they're not alone. It's not a weakness of theirs. Something we all have to deal with, and we all just need to be a little bit more self-belief and a little bit more confidence. So, no, thank you very much for your time, Linda. Again, you know, the story I think is remarkable. You know, how somebody can come from living in care, moving down to London on their own at such a young age, to be an actor, actress, and then find themselves working in a tech leadership role is pretty remarkable. And I think it just proves, despite how, you know, remarkable you are, that anybody can do it. And nobody should write themselves off because they haven't got a certain qualification or they haven't, you know, followed a certain path. So again, yeah, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure if anybody's got any questions, you'll be happy for them to reach out to you after the session.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Thanks, Linda.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kevin. Thanks everybody for joining.